All right, welcome in. Let's chat. Jazz basketball. What's going on, everybody? My name's Mark Pereira. Here for your Salt City Hoops live postcast. Ooh, we got a disappointing loss to talk about today, but as always, we don't come with the disappointing beers. I am drinking today a blackberry and vanilla rum barrel-aged Belgian quadruple from Ool's Brewing in Colorado here. They make a lot of good stuff. We'll be featuring a lot of Ool's Brewing here. So if you know anyone from Ool's Brewing, tell them they're getting free advertisement. This is what we got. Belgian quadruple. Great, deep, amber brown color. And it's very fruit forward. Not like the sour and tart stuff like you might be used to. When somebody says that, it's got that real nice, deep, sugary caramel quadruple flavor that you've come to like. And then it just kind of finishes with like that blackberry. It's so well balanced with the finishing with the blackberry and vanilla. I gotta top this off a little bit, get the dregs at the bottom, get all the sediment, get the good stuff in there. I'm thrilled to be here though. It's the day after Christmas. We had a great weekend, and I'm okay to watch basketball in whatever form. But you end up with a team today in the Jazz that just, for a team they're ostensibly about energy and high effort plays. They sure have a lot of moments every game where that's not consistent at all, and they don't provide the energy, or they aren't thinking very clearly, and they appear lazy when it's really just a mental fortitude issue. And I don't know if it's just day after Christmas and people are just moving a little slower, and the Spurs are a really young team and they were really fast. But the Jazz were just getting out-hustled for a lot of the game. And I include mental in that too, because it just felt like a lot of Jazz players were just losing the thread on a bunch of plays. Transition defense, half-court defense. The defense was pretty miserable all game long, including by Utah Jazz standards, right? Like, you're allowing the Spurs to post up a 120 120.2 offensive efficiency, which that's not the best in the world, but when they rank 27th in the league in offense and 30th on defense, they average about 110 per offensive per 100 possessions, and today it was 120.2. So just bad defense all around. We're talking about 47% at the rim. We know the Jazz are bad at defending the rim, but it was particularly heinous today. That 47% at the rim. That's how many shots were at the rim, and then the Spurs shot 77% and field goal percentage at the rim today. So all of their shots coming at the rim today, and they're making 77% of them. Meanwhile, on the other end of the equation, obviously Jakob Poeltl's a fabulous rim defender. He's having a very down year by his standards, but still very good. But his presence on the court, the Jazz, I don't know if it was a scouting report or what, or just prior experiences with Jakob Poeltl, they treated him like Rudy Gobert. Like, they just would not attempt scoring on him. The only players who were unafraid of his general presence were Lauri Markkanen and Malik Beasley, I felt, and everyone else they were settling for mid-range shots when he was in the paint. Jazz shooting a lot of threes today, not a lot of them going in, and they're trying to get to the rim, but they shot only 50% at the rim. And that was pretty much a Jakob Poeltl effect. And we had some good blocks and defensive presence from the youngsters like Jeremy Sohan as well. So a good defensive effort from San Antonio, frankly, but they are the worst defense in the league. Kind of watching them play, that does surprise me a little bit. When you have Jakob Poeltl in there, it's hard to be the worst defense in the NBA. And then he's backed up by Zach Collins, who's come on of late. He's not a very good defensive center, but he's got length, and he put 6 fouls on and put a block on, and he's Zach Collins has always been a pretty good defensive rebounder for his presence. And you look at the Spurs, and they have young guys, but not a lot of guys you say are just pure, we're going to torch them kind of guys. And maybe they're they are figuring things out defensively. I haven't watched a lot of Spurs this year, frankly, and you watch Greg Popovich is on his feet all game, still coaching. This is like it's a playoff game. He's yelling at his players to do this, do that. Keldon Johnson, below average defensive player. He had some good moments for Team USA defensively, but with his extra offensive role, he's been kind of middling defensively. Jeremy Sohan up and down, but I thought he had a great defensive game today. We talked about Pirtle. Devin Vassell, don't really know much about his defense, but he did have 2 steals and 2 blocks today. So he was obviously an impact defensively. And Trey Jones, he's a small guy, so he gets taken advantage of, but he kind of reminds me of like an older but not bad yet Mike Conley defensively. He was in passing lanes, playing smart defensively. Don't mind him. Doug McDermott is total trash fire defensively. Malachi Branham was a total trash fire defensively. And they brought in Stanley Johnson and Keita Bates-Diop off the bench, who they played a combined 19 minutes. So not worth talking about their defense too much, but they were positive in the few minutes they played. So this is a Spurs team that obviously has some flawed defenders like Doug McDermott and Malachi Branham, but this isn't you still got to bring it to him, right? And the Jazz were getting scared in the paint of Jakob Poeltl, who just he was the best player on the court today. Just a fabulous defensive presence today. Jakob Poeltl was a game high among both teams, a plus 14, along with his teammate Devin Vassell. So a lot of this can be explained though by just. Look, this game says it's a 4-point loss. The Jazz were in a position to get it within 2 points when a late Malik Beasley 3 rimmed out. And what is it? That might have been to tie the game, but it was a late Malik Beasley 3 that was totally down and out. But this was a total domination from the Spurs. The Spurs were up 20 at one point, and that 20 was in the second half, I believe. Yeah, it was late in the third quarter. The Spurs go up 20, and at one point in the mid fourth quarter, it looks like they were up 15. They were up 15 with halfway to go in the fourth quarter, and they were up 14 with about 2-3 minutes left to play in the fourth quarter, and then a bunch of threes and good defense from Utah brought it back. So let's not look at the score and say like, it was a close game. They just got a little unlucky. Yeah, sure. The Jazz shot 13 of 43 from 3. Which is not a good percentage. Malik Beasley 2 of 11, Jordan Clarkson 2 of 6, Lauri Markkanen 3 of 10. These are guys you expect to have better shooting nights. The only counterbalance that you're seeing is that Mike Conley shoots 5 of 7 from 3. He finally got off the pine with decent shooting today. But that's sure, you could point at the Jazz and say, I just wish they shot a little better, and maybe they're down by 10, 15, 20 points at certain points in the second half. But more importantly, like, you just can't give up 126 points to the league's worst or second worst team, right? By the way, Detroit took the Clippers into overtime today, and Detroit put up 131. Granted, that wasn't overtime, but the Spurs putting up 126 points, I mean, it was just miserable defense. Jared Vanderbilt's getting lost. Walker Kessler is fouling everything that moves, and Walker Kessler, he has these. He's gonna figure it out. He's so good presence-wise defensively that I'm very confident that he's gonna figure it out. But he's got these like rookie strength things, and I think he's actually feeling the weight of the season coming onto him. I think he's losing steam. I think he's losing speed. I think he's losing strength because if he plays a decent stretch, you can see him start to like lower those hands and commit really dumb fouls that shouldn't be fouls. So he only gets to play 21 minutes today because he was in foul trouble all game. It says he only has 4 fouls today, but he picked up 3 fouls very early in the first half. He picked up his 4th foul. He did not start the second half. Malik Beasley started in this place to sort of preserve Walker Kessler, and he picked up that 4th foul within like a couple minutes of him being in the third quarter, and basically he played very minimally in the fourth quarter. Jared Vanderbilt also was in foul trouble. Notably, Udoka Azubuike never got minutes at center. Will Hardy tried to do the best he can to keep Udoka Azubuike from making minutes. At one point, we did see Lauri Markkanen playing a little bit of a center today. Lauri Markkanen, 38 minutes today, 32 points, 12 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2 critical blocks at the end. Markkanen, I thought, was probably the only worthwhile defender today, and he was usually guarding the Spurs, basically a non-threat from the Spurs. But whenever he got switched on to somebody, he actually provided some okay defense. You're just never going to find Lauri Markkanen running in transition on defense, though. If Lauri Markkanen is even in the camera on transition defense. he's not making a play on the ball. Like you're just not having anything from him from a transition perspective. But I thought his half court defense was adequate today. Only 2 fouls from Markkanen today. Again, in a high foul game, everyone's committing fouls, and you get great rim attackers like the Spurs or ostensibly are trying to do, like attack the rim a lot today. It makes that decision to kind of pull Markkanen when he had those 3 fouls in the first half the other day a little suspicious. Like, he's just not a high foul player. Keep him in there. Anyways, that was the other game. Who cares? 13 out of 13 from the free throw line from Markkanen today. He also took advantage of the Spurs defense. Again, the offense at the end of the day, 122 points, and their offensive rating was a totally adequate, not league top 5 in the league like the Jazz have been, but 117 points per possession for Utah, which would be in the 64th percentile, which, that's a C plus grade, right? Like, that's above average. Like, that's okay. You would like it to be better against the league's worst defense. I recognize that. Let's call it shooting luck, right? You're putting up 122 points. That's a pretty solid game. Yeah, you're probably going to lose some games against the better offenses in the league if you're, quote unquote, only putting up 122 points. More importantly, 117 points per possession, right? So you put up a C plus offensive performance, and against the league's 27th ranked defense or offense, you just got to play a little bit better defense. And the problems come with transition. They were running it down our throat. It was everyone was losing their man on transition opportunities, and it was just easy baskets for San Antonio in transition. Looking at the stats now for transition plays, their points per possession were not good. But they did have 20 fast break points today. I didn't feel a lot of resistance there from transition opportunity, but they only were a plus 0.8 points per possession in transition. But they had a lot of transition opportunities, which is the problem. That plus 0.8 is not a very good points per possession in transition, but it did feel like they had the chances for these transition plays a lot, and that probably shows up more in like the gut check. We're probably looking at, okay, so was it turnovers? Was it rebounding? It just really did not feel like a quality defensive transition play today. From Utah, from a defensive standpoint. Just checking a look at some of the other outliers here as what happened today. Obviously, the Jazz are going to shoot a bunch of threes, and they just could not make them. And maybe it is, at the end of the day, more of an offensive shooting luck kind of a thing, but it just is very disappointing to end up with giving up that many points to a hapless Spurs squad. And if you look at the individual performances for the Spurs, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. Jakob Poeltl, 6 of 6 from the field, 4 or 5 from the free throw line. Probably get a little unlucky there, but he's perfect from the field. 9 rebounds, 4 blocks from Jakob Poeltl today. You had great performances from Devin Vassell, who I mentioned, the 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Only 8-22 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, but I felt like his presence was good. And Colin Sexton, oddly, was going under a lot of his screens, and Devin Vassell is a 40% three-point shooter, so wasn't really sure what was happening there. And Keldon Johnson had a very solid regular game. He's shooting great from 3, but he only shot 0 of 2 from 3 today. And otherwise, he was 9 of 12 everywhere else, just running it down the Jazz throw at the rim. Trey Jones, he had 2 great paint buckets late. He's a 6', 5'11" point guard, right? And he's getting to the rim at ease whenever he wanted. I actually thought Malik Beasley's isolation defense on him in that last possession was okay. There was Lauri Markkanen was covering Jeremy Sohan. Jakob Poeltl was not in the game, and I thought Markkanen just didn't provide enough help to make that a difficult shot at the end of the game. But it is what it is. Zach Collins, I felt like as the backup center for Jakob Poeltl, I thought that the Jazz did a really good job trying to take advantage of him when we could, but he goes 4-4 from the field, right? Like, there was just no defensive presence on him at all. Doug McDermott does what he does, 5 of 10 from the field, 14 points. Plus, you have to win the Doug McDermott minutes, I feel. And that just we did not take advantage of him defensively. And yeah, that's how you end up with Rudy Gay, or that's how you end up with the Spurs doing what to do. Can you tell what's on my mind? It's Rudy Gay. So, I'll talk about the Jazz folks now. Mentioned Markin, he was fine. Very good score today. I thought his half-court defense was fine. He's not going to be a problem. It's literally everybody else, right? So Jordan Clarkson's getting terrified in the paint today. I thought he did a great job drawing fouls late in the game, but if he just did not have it going early, he was had a miserable shooting percentage in the first half, and it was kind of bleeding over to the rest of his offense. He was not passing the ball very well. Although he did have two very impressive wraparound interior paint passes that went right through the hands of Walker Kessler, who was probably, in contrast to Jakob Poeltl, might have been the worst player on the floor today, right? There was just no impact provided by Walker Kessler, and everyone was attacking him at the rim with no fear, like, okay, we're going to get a foul, or that there's just going to be some discombobulation from the Utah defense and we can kick it out. So it was okay. Mike Conley had the best game of the season, though, at least from a statistical perspective. I thought Mike Conley has had fabulous game management games as the point guard for the team. But today his shooting was on 6 of 2, 6 of 12 from the field, 5 of 7 from 3. So he's just 1 of 5 from 2. He had one classic floater over Zach Collins today, and otherwise he was just kind of miserable from 2 today again. So Mike Conley shooting well from 3, I love that. You know, he's shooting these off the bounce threes. He had a couple wide open threes today. He also chipped in 3 steals and an incredible block today. No, the broadcast didn't mention it, but they kind of mentioned it as like, oh, great defense by the Jazz to get the rebound. It was actually just a fabulous block on a reverse layup attempt by the Spurs. I think it was Trey Jones, and it was late in the game, and Mike Conley gets this critical block. Mike Conley also got a critical rebound against Jakob Poeltl late in the game. Conley left his heart on the floor. He also played without shooting sleeves today for the first time in a long time. Maybe that helped his shooting. You love to see the 5 of 7 from 3, but if he's going to go 1 of 5 from 2, right, that floater range, or he can't get to the paint anymore. Like, tell me the next time you see Mike Conley shoot like a contested layup, right, and try to get it off the glass. It's just not what he's doing. So he's shooting all these mid-range shots, and that needs to be better than 20%, which I think is on par with his shooting. I can take a look at that in a minute. And then Malik Beasley, like I just have no problem with Malik Beasley's game today. I thought his defense could have been a little better, but don't mind the 4 of 16 he shot today. Don't mind the 2 of 11 from 3 that he had today. I very rarely have an issue with his shot selection. He will jack up a long 2 probably once a game, but I'm okay with 1 or 2 a game. Like, it's not his regular diet like a Dylan Brooks. Pardon me while I take a sip of this fabulous beer. This is going right to the top of favorite beers I've ever had. Wow. I also like Belgian triples and quadruples in general, and you add the barrel age element and some good flavors to it. Ooh, that's good. So Malik Beasley plays 30 minutes today. That is, I believe, 3rd on the team. 4th, I'm sorry, Mike Conley did hit over 32 minutes today, so they're running Mike Conley into the ground. He gets a game of rest before we go on the road against Golden State on Wednesday. Hopefully he plays for that one. He should. No issues. Just commenting on Mike Conley playing a lot. Colin Sexton, I thought he could have played more. He's probably still on a minutes limit coming back. 5 of 12 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3. Love the 3 he hit. I loved his tempo. His defense I thought was okay. Committed a couple bad fouls, but you're getting your typical D+, C- defense out of Colin Sexton that masquerades as good defense because it looks like effort. Same thing with Jared Vanderbilt, by the way, right? Like, Jared Vanderbilt supposedly has this great motor, but you only see the motor when it's motoring. And I feel like we don't notice the motor when it's in idle. And Jared Vanderbilt's motor was in idle for a lot of today. And here's the thing with Kessler and Vanderbilt's fouls today. They're lazy swipes. Actually, in Kessler's case, it was more the impossible task of trying to stay vertical and keep your hands vertical and not bring them down and commit the fouls as a rookie. But Vanderbilt's fouls were just lazy ass swipes, man. Like and that's not motor. That's real disappointing. And you can see Vanderbilt turn it on, like when Vanderbilt's guarding a Devin Vassell or a Trey Jones. He puts his long arms out there wide, and he really gets in a nice defensive stance, and he really almost mirrors the movement, and he's really got a good feel for guarding smaller players. The dude cannot guard wings at times, and that was a big problem today against Keldon Johnson, just kind of swiping at him and committing a bunch of fouls. Nickeil Alexander-Walker had 4 steals in 15 minutes today. I would love Nickeil Alexander-Walker to become an actually good defensive player, and I thought his defense today actually spoke to that credit, right? He was matched up against the bench of the Spurs a lot, and you see Malachi Branham with 7-11, 20 points off the bench today, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker matched up a lot of that. But you look at Branham's minus 13 and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a relatively solid minus 4 compared to the rest of the Jazz, and that's because Nickeil Alexander-Walker is forcing a lot of the issue from Branham. There were a couple bad turnovers from Branham today that were forced by Nickeil, and Nickeil has a great feel for jumping passing lanes. I thought his defense warranted a lot of use. Look, this is a crowded Jazz backcourt, and sometimes there's no real way to win some minutes if you're playing 4 guards at the same time. Like, this isn't 2009 Villanova basketball or whatever. But there's got to be a way to solve the Rudy Gay problem, right? Of course, he's going to go with he's a +6 in 15 minutes for Rudy Gay today, which is second on the team to Colin Sexton's +7. And look, plus minus doesn't always tell the whole story, but you kind of got to say, like, okay, +6 in a game they lost by 4. Okay, that means something. But 0 of 3 from the field. 0 of 3. All three of his shot attempts were from 3. They were all misses. One of them was a wide open corner 3 that he got to sink it. He had 4 defensive rebounds today. 4 overall rebounds, 3 defensive rebounds today. He would have had a 4th defensive rebound, except he secured a rebound late after a great defense by the Jazz. Jazz are trying to claw back into it, and as he starts to dribble it up the court, he dribbles it off his foot out of bounds. There was 2 other plays we're going to call out from Rudy Gay because this is the Rudy Gay hating show. Rudy Gay is on a switch, gets matched up against Jakob Poeltl on a little action, and so Jakob Poeltl's kind of meandering towards the hoop, and Rudy Gay is face guarding him, and which is the goal of that is for Poeltl just to like not get the ball, right? So you can kind of watch his eyes like a defensive back, and there's no pass interference. In basketball, you can't be too handsy. You can't commit a foul, but you can be a little physical. And the ball handler tosses an arcing pass to Jakob Poeltl, kind of moseying his way towards the hoop, straight line towards the basket, and Marketing gets a hand on it. He gets a little fingertip on it, so it ends up even more of like an arcing, easy kind of thing that just it should be very easy to intercept him because Rudy Gay is not turning around. He's just kind of like watching Poeltl's eyes. It just falls softly into Poeltl's outstretched arms, which Rudy Gay could not stop, and it was just an easy layup for Poeltl. So that was one defensive play that really frustrated me because if you're going to face guard a guy, you got to prevent him from getting the ball. Unless you're like a guard going up against the center, right? Like, no, Rudy Gay is 6'8", 6'9". He should be able to get that. What was the other one? I think that was all my Rudy Gay hate for today. So that'll be it for the Rudy Gay show today. Hopefully he plays better. Look, he's not going to lose his spot in the rotation, so hopefully he plays better on Wednesday against the Warriors. Look, he's not trying to play bad, right? In Rudy Gay's optimal world, he's getting traded to a better team. So he's trying to show his worth out there so that he can get traded. Or just play well in general. Fontecchio was quite miserable in his 5 minutes. He had to step in a little earlier, probably at all, if it was up to Will Hardy. And his defense was completely awful. His 2 fouls that he committed were really, really, really bad fouls. 0-1 from 3. And he got the ball on this beautiful action that gets him wide open, going to the rim. And I can't remember if it was Jakob Poeltl. I think it was somebody else. It might have been Poeltl. I have a feeling it was somebody else. But so Fontecchio gets the ball on a great little action. There is nobody in the paint. He gets the ball at the left side, at the left block, and he goes up for a dunk. And the guy who is on the weak side, the weak side of the rim comes under the rim, and Fontecchio is so slow to rise up and dunk it that the guy on the weak side comes under the rim, rises up, and completely stuffs the shit out of his block attempt, which that's got to be a basket. Like, he gets the ball that wide open. Like, at least if you see the guy committing that hard and that fast, you can draw a foul there. It was not a great attempt. Missed his three. It was a fine attempt. It just didn't go in. Whatever. His defense he was losing guys all over the place. He was up against Doug McDermott a couple times and did not look good. So I can't sit here and say Fontecchio should take Rudy Gay's minutes after today. Now, I think overall the picture says I'd rather see what Fontecchio does, because you're trying to see what this team can do for the future, and I don't think Fontecchio is like more than 30% worse than Rudy Gay is. Like, I'm pretty sure Fontecchio could put up 0 of 3 from the field, 4 rebounds, and limited defense, right? Like, I think Fontecchio can give us that. He just was pretty miserable today. And look, I won't cut corners, man. If Fontecchio ends up playing 17 minutes on Wednesday and Gay gets 0, we're going to criticize Fontecchio's 17 minutes. We're going to analyze them. We're going to say, like, okay, what did you do on the court? It's just more like who actually deserves to play right now. And it's for like the Jazz vision for the future. And that's probably the only piece of this where I'm like, we got to get the young guy a little bit more minutes. And maybe it's like, okay, he's 26, so like the pressure isn't super on to give him a ton of minutes. He's on a cheap contract for a couple years. Like, he's kind of a flyer, so it's not that big of a deal. But it is hitting on a guy like Fontecchio and seeing what you have on him that really differentiates how you can build a championship team. Because if you got a guy like that on the cheap, and maybe you re-sign him to a very affordable bench level contract, and he ends up overplaying it. Like, that's how you build these teams, and so that's my disappointment there. The last point I'll make kind of as a broad stroke is the Jazz were giving and this has happened in a couple of their losses this year. They were giving up a ton of and one fouls. So when I was mentioning Vanderbilt's lazy swiping today, that wasn't just Vanderbilt. It was everyone on the team. When they were committing fouls, it came on a driving paint layup attempt, right? There were I don't think the Spurs had any free throws that were as the result of bad jump shot fouls. The Spurs shot 34 free throws today, and almost all of them were because of paint attempts, and a lot of them came off of and one opportunities. So that's just lazy swiping. Mike Conley had a really lazy swipe. One of Markkanen's 2 fouls was pretty lazy, and Malik Beasley had a lazy foul, and some of the stuff is just really gross to watch, because it's just and one after and one after and one. Whereas if you turn like the made basket, like they shoot 55% from the field today. That's horrible. That's miserable, right? And that's just an unconscionable figure to give up, 55% from the field. So if you turn some of those made basket and ones into 2 free throws instead, and they shoot 70% from the free throw line like they did today, this game becomes a lot more attainable. You just can't look at what you do from the 3-point line and say, that's our issue, right? There's always going to be a second, more critical issue today, and that's just going to be the paint defense, right? I'm okay with it being bad. I want it to be 22nd, 23rd in the league bad, and right now it's probably second worst or league worst in as far as paint defense. Let me actually take a look at that. See if I can get some paint defense. Defense, shooting frequency. The Jazz give the 22nd. They allow the 22nd most shots at the rim in the NBA as far as frequency. And they are this actually does surprise me. They are 17th in the NBA in rim shooting percentage at 66.9%. The worst teams in the NBA are shooting around 70% allowed at the rim, which is what the Jazz gave up today, by the way. Like Toronto, Denver, New Orleans shooting 70, 71%, 71.4% by their opponents. So that is surprising if the Jazz are going to be that high. But to that end, they are reaching the goal from a league perspective. Is like, okay, they're 17th in the NBA at shooting percentage allowed at the rim. And like I said, they were 22nd in attempts at the rim. So they're forcing the right kinds of shots a lot of the time, but not most of the time, and they're allowing a very average percentage at the rim. So a game like today, when they're allowing 70+% at the rim, 76.9% at the rim, that's pretty unconscionably bad because they're capable of doing a lot better. So I don't think I have anything else. I don't think I have a grand conclusion except this beer is awesome. So, I got nothing else today. Disappointing loss to the Spurs. This was the Spurs. It was on the road after Christmas. This can happen. The Spurs are a professional NBA team. We're not super duper tanking yet. Right? The Spurs aren't. They're still playing their quality players like Keldon Johnson and Jakob Poeltl and Devin Vassell all played today. Zach Collins played today. Josh Richardson did not play, coach's decision. I don't hear anything about his injury today. So he's the only guy that you would say like, oh, well, he's a useful player. Why isn't he playing? But everybody, he was out. He was out for personal reasons on Thursday and Saturday. So maybe he was just out for personal reasons again. So maybe he was actually out today. So that was a decent Spurs team like on paper, and it just didn't work out. So that's your Salt City Hoops live postcast. Little one. 30 minutes. Talk about a loss to the Spurs. It's a loss to the Spurs. How much else can you say? We'll get back to it against the Warriors on Wednesday. Thankfully, that game is an actual... After all these 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock games, the Jazz have a normal start time that we can do this postcast super live. 8 o'clock on Wednesday, 8 o'clock on Friday against the Kings, and back home on New Year's Eve against the Heat at 7 o'clock. I actually might do a postcast for that one because I'm a dad and I don't have New Year's Eve plans. My New Year's Eve plans are making sure my kids are in bed. So we might do a little postcast, and I'll be drinking another great beer for that. So me and my Belgian quadruple are going to sign off. Thank you guys for joining the Salt City Hoops live postcast. We'll catch you Wednesday, and from there, we'll enjoy the rest of the basketball tonight. All right, good night, friends.